Good morning. I call the meeting to order. Lisa, may we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Elmore Dave,
Present.
Vice Chair Nancy McCormick,
Present.
Councilmember Esquada,
Present.
Councilmember Bender, Councilmember Beerstow,
Present.
Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Hutter,
Here.
Councilmember Kazmierski, Councilmember Knudsen, Councilmember Madole,
I'm chilling.
Councilmember Nanini,
Present.
Councilmember Schilling, here present, Councilmember Thurman,
Here.
in time.
Councilmember Woodring,
Present.
and I see that Marisa is
Good, dear.
Yes, sorry.
There you are. Good morning. We weren't going to get your
Sally,
Present.
Cheryl Cardoza,
Present.
Kimberly Tran,
Present.
and Scott Huber. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Lisa. We move on to public comment. Before we have the public comment, I would like to welcome two new members to the TMCC Institutional Advisory Council. Ms. Deborah Beiersdorf, Chief Academic Officer for the Washoe County School District. Ms. Beiersdorf is filling the seat that is left vacant with the resignation of Dr. Dana Ryan. And Mr. Joe Nanini, Career Education Coordinator at UNR. Deborah, Joe, welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment. Public comment will be taken during this agenda item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item until the matter is included on an agenda as an item on which action may be taken. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name. The council chair may elect to allow additional public comment on a specific item when that agenda item is being considered. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none. We move on to item number 3, membership update. Gonna take that.
I think that's the IAC membership update, so. Is that correct, Lisa? It's the two new IAC members, or?
We'll have a position starting the beginning of the year.
Okay. So there is an open position starting at the first of the year. So if you turn, yeah. So,
We'll have 4 returning members.
so may I do
Sure,
the
yeah,
membership
please,
update?
Please.
So if you turn to your materials, you have a one-pager which shows that there are 14 seats, and starting in January, we will have an open position. So if we do want to add another person or position representing a particular industry type or constituent group, there is still one position, one more opportunity to do so. So we're looking pretty good. Got a pretty nice, well-rounded IAC.
Thank you. We move on at this point to the approval of the minutes. These are the minutes that of the TMCC IAC meeting of August 11, 2017. The meeting minutes have been distributed. Are there any corrections?
Chair Davi, my title is Faculty Senate Chair, and on the minutes it says Faculty Senate Chair-elect. So I'd just like that to be corrected, please.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
As corrected.
Does anyone second the motion? As corrected, yes.
Second.
Those in favor, thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Those abstains, please say aye. Thank you. The meeting minutes are approved as corrected. We move on to agenda item number 5, an update on the Nevada Promise Scholarship presented by Estela Gutierrez. Good morning, Estela, and thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Is this on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm not, so if my voice goes, I apologize. I do have my SWAT team behind me in case. And then also, I'm on coding, so if I fall asleep. Anyways, but this is fun. This is fun. I'm sure all of you have heard about the Nevada Promise Scholarship, and we're very excited here at TMCC. Currently, we have approximately 1,800 students who have applied, close to 1,800 students that have applied. And then we have approximately 127 mentors. And that's why we're here, because we are looking for mentors. We're looking for approximately 200 mentors. So what is the scholarship? Basically, it's a scholarship that covers up to 3 years of registration and other mandatory fees, and it only applies to the class of 2018. So there's lots of steps as far as the scholarship for the student. But the one that I'm going to skip to is meet with their assigned mentor. That's a big component for these students, is that they meet with their mentor. So in order to be a mentor, it's very simple. There's 3 steps. You apply to tmcc.edu. You participate in a criminal background history report, which we would offer here at TMCC, and then complete a mandatory online mentor training by December 15th of this year. So what does it mean to be a mentor? So essentially, you decide as a mentor, if you do commit to students, is that you decide how many students you want to mentor. So you can mentor anywhere from 1 up to 10 students. You invest about 3 to 5 total hours per semester, and semesters run, per 4 months. So that's that's 2 semesters a year. And then you mentor, your commitment lasts up to 2 years, and that starts beginning January 2018, which is, to help them kind of get into school, get them motivated, and so forth. I haven't assigned myself, so I am going to be one of the mentors, so that's my teammate, and hopefully Jesse will too, my husband. And then complete the first mentor meeting with students by April 30th, okay? So you have to get that accomplished first. And so we have a superstar among our staff, and that's Angela South. All of you should have received a package. You have that packet in front of you. Is there other packets? Yeah? Everybody got packets? Okay, cool. So I'm going to have Angela actually run through some of the things that I need you to really flag. So hopefully some of you could join us and be a mentor. It's really needed. I can't believe 1,800 students. Can you imagine? We've got a lot from Washoe County School District, so that's so awesome. And thank you to Washoe County School District, because this was a joint effort. And I know that Superintendent Tracy Davis really supported this from the get-go, and our counselors at the Washoe County School District also. So Angela, I know you've been really busy, so come over and let's go ahead and have you go over the packet. So thank you so much. I did one, I survived.
Thank you. Hello again. Thank you for having us here today. Some of you have heard my plea, and hopefully this will be the last time. And this will not to pick on anyone, but hopefully this will just a reminder, right, for you to really consider it and apply today. Okay, so you have this flyer here. This will walk you through all the steps that you need to know. We do have a really long link here, but if you just go to nvpromise.tmcc.edu, that's where you can find the link. It'll be easy to find. But yeah, it's a simple application. It asks for personal information. If you're not comfortable with giving that to me through a web server, that's okay. I've taken paper applications. Do you guys have that paper application? If not, I also do have copies. If you're more than comfortable to fill those out and take them today, then you would have to complete. Yes.
The arm's twisted.
The next step will be to complete a
That's when you come in, Susan.
It will be run through TMCC. TMCC will pay for it. They will contact you. It will be a secured process. And then lastly, yes, you do have to complete the training. It will be online. It's all going to be recorded, and you get to finish it on your own, on your own time whenever that is possible for you. But the deadline, it is a soft deadline of December 15th, just because we need to know how many mentors we're working with. match you by December 31st, around that time, so. And then the next step would be that we would match you and contact you in January. I hope that you guys all consider it. If you could please tell your colleagues, you know, wherever you're at your workplace, we do need law enforcement. I'm reading the student applications, and a lot of students are interested in law enforcement. They want to be teachers, health careers, you know, law, business. So definitely all of you can make a powerful impact in our students. And please share on social media with your friends. If you need more flyers, you know, I'm more than happy to also come to your work sites and make an announcement. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I'm sorry, Susan Schilling, for the record. I'm probably going to call you and have you come over due to the shout out to law enforcement.
Perfect.
Great idea.
Nancy McCormick with Edon. The question that I have or just wanted to get a little bit more information about is on the application, I noticed that you need to fill out your date of birth as well as your high school. And there was a bit of concern over the security of the information that was being provided. That high school component is something that typically doesn't show up very many places. And so I just want to make sure of the security provisions for the online applications that are being made by mentors. And I know the background check is a completely different matter, but just wanted to hear a little bit about how that information is secured and
It is secured through our webmaster. It is, and can you speak a little bit more, please? I don't know. I'm fairly new to TMCC, so I don't know the security, how secure it is. I'm guessing it is because we are providing, you know, we're asking for it. But like I said, if you don't feel comfortable filling that one slot, don't fill it out. As far as high school, we are just asking that because if we do have students who graduated from your high schools, then we would like to match you if possible, just to gather more information about, you know, what would be a great fit for you and the student. When it comes to the criminal background check, that's when you will have to provide your
Right.
birthday.
thank
If
you.
you don't feel comfortable, that's fine.
For the record, Sharon Ward, Executive Director of Financial Aid and Student Success. It goes behind our firewall, and then it's only accessed by Angela and Yuli and Cal, the webmaster. So it's not widely, it's not in the area of the database. It's widely accessed, and you have to have a password to get into it. And in response to your question about the high school, that's really for folks that maybe graduated from a local high school to see if we can match students with you to your high school.
Thank you.
Great questions. Are there any other questions or comments?
I still do have assignment. If maybe you do want more information, maybe you want to sit with me, or I can come to you. I do have this clipboard. I can pass it along, and maybe you're just interested in learning more, so I can get that to you.
Hi, I just have one question on, I started filling mine out dutifully last night, and it requires 2 references. So I just wanted to kind of make people aware as you start into this to kind of decide, what kind of people, what references type of thing are you looking for, really?
It could be colleagues. I think colleagues would work. I know some people are also family members, anyone at your church or community members.
Thank you.
There you go.
For the record, Julie Chavez, Program Director for Access Outreach and Recruitment. We are working with students who are under 18. So the reference check and the background check is completed to do our best to protect our students. So we appreciate that information.
Would you-
That's the main reason why we request that information.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Yes. Julie Chavez, Program Director for Access Outreach and Recruitment.
Thank you. Dr. Hilgerson.
So Karin Hilgersum, for the record. Once a student has successfully, once a person has successfully applied to be a mentor, where do they conduct and how do they conduct the criminal background check? Like, how does that work?
We're working on the process as we speak, but you will receive a secured email. It's going to say, this is a message from TMCC, and this is your email. Well, it'll prompt you, there will be a link, a secured link, so you'll start the process online.
Second question, if that's okay. Sure. What if the mentor doesn't have a good internet access, or maybe they simply have a cell phone and don't want to do that online. Is there an offline alternative, and is that communicated to the mentors?
I can definitely double check with HR.
Okay.
That's a great point to bring up and to
Right.
be ready for.
It was a question asked to me yesterday, so,
Perfect, so I'll write that down.
yeah. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you both very much. We move on to agenda item number 6, the President's update presented by President Hilgersim, including an update on the Nevada System of Higher Education Tuition and Fees Committee, list of TMCC Advisory Board members as requested by Councilmember McCormick, and an update on TMCC Health and Sports Complex.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to reiterate our welcome to Debbie and Joe. Thank you so much for agreeing to serve. I think it's very important that we have as many strong linkages with Washoe County School District. So thank you, Debbie, for helping with that. And I do also want to express my thanks to Superintendent Tracy and Kristen, Chief of Staff Kristen, I'm forgetting her job title, because they really did help us with Nevada Promise, and I think that's wonderful. The other thing I wanted to say to you, Joe, is one of our IAC council members last year identified and suggested that we have a University of Reno, Nevada, I'm really tongue-twisted today, a University of Nevada, Reno connection, and you're that. And I'm so thankful that you agreed to serve. And we look forward to working with you and helping us strengthen the work with University of Nevada, Reno. There's a lot of wonderful things that are happening right now between TMCC and the University of Nevada, Reno. But I think we're hoping to get some help on transfer and trying to figure out how to continue to strengthen and improve transfer between TMCC and the University of Nevada, Reno. So welcome and thank you. I'm so glad that you're both here today. I also want to say that it's been a very busy time. I've had some great conversations with Elmar, and I think you'll see some of the outcomes of those conversations as we move through the agenda today. And I really appreciate, I think, the direction that you as chair are planning on bringing to TMCC, Elmar. So thank you for that. So first I want to say, update on Nevada System of Higher Education Tuition and Fees Committee. I had the pleasure of serving as one of several committee members that meets occasionally through the years to recommend any increases in tuition in the NSHE system. And after a couple of meetings and some deliberations and some data sharing, the proposal that will be making its way through the Nevada State System of Higher Education is a 1.8 tuition increase starting in the year 2019, followed by another 1.8% tuition increase followed in the year 2020. The tuition increase suggestion at this point is based on a thing called the HEPI index. And the HEPI index is a higher educational price index, and it's an index which calculates, when you look at all of the increased costs that have been occurring in higher education, whether you're talking about a utility bill or salaries or whatever it is, that it's kind of spits out a number, and that number is 1.8. We did explore several other ideas. So, for example, one of the ideas that I asked the system to explore is having no tuition increases, I should say, no tuition increases for community colleges in NSHE, and that a modest increase occur at the universities. And there's a lot of reasons why I still think that's a good idea, but we don't need to go into those today. The other suggestion that was made that we seriously considered was a suggestion that there be 0% increase in 2019 and then a modest HEPI-based increase of 1.8 in the following year. In the end, though, and after analysis and some discussion, the committee decided to recommend just a very simple 1.8 based on the cost index as it is occurring in public higher education. So I wanted you to know that because we'll probably do at least one forum at our campus to discuss that. As the IAC, if you want to take some kind of a stand on that, you can. We have until really the month before June, May, to do that, so there's time. I am very supportive of the final outcome, just so you know. I think 1.8% is a fair tuition increase for community college students. So I do support that recommendation. I've also brought this to the Faculty Senate. I've brought it to the Student Government Association because as stakeholders, I think they too need to have discussions and weigh in a shared governance model. And so they'll have some time to do that. But once again, we will schedule a forum and invite especially the campus community, and at that forum, I'll provide additional detail and some of the history. But that's sort of my brief update on where that committee landed. The committee work is done. So we're done. We've made our official recommendation. We step aside, and then there's several months to gather more input and deliberation. And at the end of the day, the Board of Regents will be the ones to decide any tuition and fee increase for the NSHE system. Any questions about that one? Okay. So list of TMCC advisory board members. One of the things that I think it's important to do, and these are some of the highlights of the conversations that Elmar and I have had, is how do we as a community college, how do we figure out what new programs will really benefit our regional community? And by that, in my mind, I think of Reno and Sparks. I really do. And so I think one of the primary functions of this committee is to help us do that. And so before we start talking about that a little later on in the morning, I wanted to give you sort of a quick overview of some of the things that we currently do. And these are best practices that have been occurring for many years at community colleges. The first thing, though, that I wanted to highlight for you is that we have a number of professional technical or career technical areas that have advisory boards. And it's important to have advisory boards, and what you have before you are the list of all the individuals on our advisory boards. And the goal there is to, kind of like this committee, find people who are willing to serve, who understand those particular industries or those particular disciplines, areas of study, so that once in a while we give them an official opportunity to weigh in and give us advice. And we also give them informal and unofficial opportunities to call up the faculty or to call up the directors or department chairs in those areas and try to offer some advice. So I wanted you to know that there has already been a lot of work done at TMCC to help us have programs that are very responsive and that maintain excellence and that achieve an industry standard that we can all be proud of. And so that's why we supplied to you the advisory board list that you can see college-wide. And there's quite a lot of individuals. You might know some of those people that you see on those lists. So that said, we also, those individuals on those little lists, they're looking at their narrow sort of fields. They're looking at their particular industry. I think what we're asking the IAC to do is bring a holistic perspective to that discussion. That when you look at our industry in it as a whole, are there gaps? Are there gaps that we can help close as a whether it's through an educational 2-year degree or a short-term certificate? And so that's the discussion that I think I hope you can weigh in and help us with. One of the gaps that has become very apparent to me, just in discussions with people like you, Nancy, and other individuals in the economic development community, is that right now we have a significant labor shortage in construction trades. And at one point we had construction trades here, but when the bottom fell out of construction due to the 2008 economic, some would call it collapse, it was a temporary collapse, luckily, but it took many years to get out of that. That program wasn't viable anymore because, as you can imagine, students weren't very interested in it. There weren't real jobs at the end. But we're having discussions now within our campus to bring something back to assist with this pretty scary labor shortage. And I know that Kyle Dalpy has got his folks kind of analyzing that, working on it, figuring it out. You know, these are programs that we want to launch quickly, but we don't want to launch them so quickly that they lack quality, right? So we've got to do it right, and I know that Kyle and his team will do that correctly. But what we want to do is help provide some skilled labor, some skilled talent to get out there at those job sites so that we can build affordable housing while building all of the new commercial things that are happening in our region. So that's just an example of, you know, this, not rocket science, because I must have had at least a dozen conversations in the last month where individuals are saying, oh my gosh, we're dying out here. You know, can TMCC help us? Just as an example. And by the way, to further clarify that, at our Applied Technology Center at Edison, we do offer many of the components of the construction building trades, right? We have training in HVAC. We have training in electrical. We have training in you know, manufacturing processes. Many of them are very, very helpful to the construction trades. So it's not that those trainings don't exist, but we need to revisit how it used to exist, and that is a student can learn some of the basic things necessary, including OSHA training, house framing, things like that, so that we can get them out there employed and help meet the industry needs as they are emerging very quickly in our region. Finally, I'll give you a very quick update on the TMCC Health and Sports Complex. Right now, in December, we will be going to the Board of Regents Budget and Finance Committee to secure one of the last approvals related to moving forward with the financing component, and thankfully the NSHE system really helps us with that. We see no problems with that. We think that will go very well because, as you know, in September, the Board of Regents approved of the SGA fee, and they approved of the contribution that we are making, that basically the college is making, that money that was sort of allowed to accumulate that we need to spend down. And again, that money was also accumulated by student fees. So we have the funding. We know how we're going to pay for it, but we do have to make sure that we secure the approval from one of the committees of the Board of Regents. So that's occurring in December. The other thing that's occurring right now, and Jim New is unfortunately on a panel at Edison right now at our Applied Technology Center, or he would be able to provide a little more detail. But currently we are in the process of selecting the architect for that project. And I am not on that committee, so I really don't know where they're at. But at our next meeting, I should be able to give you a lot of detail on how all of that turned out. Similar to that, there is also a committee convening. Again, I'm not on that particular committee, for the EATS project. And what we decided to do was explore a P3 partnership for that project. And some of you are probably fully aware of that, but for those who are not, this is a model that is occurring more frequently among some of our NSHE institutions. It's a model that's used quite frequently to build dormitories, for example. In this model, a private entity plans the building, they build the building, they technically own the building, they own the building and they lease the land from a college or a university. And in essence, we rent to own, and at the end of a certain time period, typically 20 years, the building then is given to the college or university. So that, combined with the new market tax credit, which we're still connecting to the EATS, might be the best way to proceed with this facility. So what I understand is that there were several private partners who were interested. There is a committee formed. I understand that they heard interviews. I don't know who the favored candidate or candidates are at this point, but I think they're concluding their business within the next couple of weeks. And then we'll have to see, since at this point we really can't commit, we need to continue to explore, at least until to the point where we can get a good estimate of what it would cost and what the debt service to the college would be. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. Jim New and I have been working with his team to come up with a very responsible debt service number. Here's what we can afford to do. If the cost of the building exceed that, then that will set the parameters for seeking private donations through the foundation. Okay, and we're making really great progress. And we think because there's another bucket of money that is set aside for sort of capital improvements that, again, has been allowed to accumulate probably with a little bit more funds than it should. And according to new NC code, we need to encumber that money quickly due to a vote that the regents took a couple of meetings ago. Okay, so, but we think that we have a very responsible amount that may help us begin that building sooner than we expected. But I got a little bit more research to do, and I hope to bring that to you at the next meeting. The other thing I'll just close with is that it's been extremely busy this last month. And one of the reasons two reasons why we were busy. First of all, there was a Board of Regents retreat. The Board of Regents are engaging in strategic planning. They also conducted a board self-assessment. I think it was a really good meeting. In it, the Chancellor unveiled five NSHE goals. And I would like to put the goals at our next meeting agenda, but they're very, very overarching at this point. Access, student success, closing the achievement gap, workforce, and research. So just in a very general way. These goals are not yet official. The Board of Regents had some ideas, they had some suggestions. The Chancellor will be going back to the board probably at the January meeting to see if they have any further suggestions or any ideas. I can tell you the discussion, and this is the part that I really appreciated. One of the regents also said, we need to capture innovation too, right? And maybe innovation is something that is threaded throughout the overarching goals. Another regent talked about diversity. We need to make sure that diversity is sort of threaded throughout those four goals. Luckily, the goals are very much in alignment with the strategic plan that currently exists for TMCC. So even though we'll have to do some formal connecting of the dots, it's very easy to connect the dots. So the goals, I think, are broad enough to really fit the important work that we do at TMCC. So, but I wanted to give you that quick update because it was just a great meeting, and I think that as we work with the Board of Regents through the IAC, there's a lot of really good things happening right now with the thought process and the new Chancellor. The other thing that was really made for a very, very busy couple of weeks, and I have to publicly thank Elena Bubnova, Anna Douglas, Kate Kirkpatrick for their work on our Aspen Institute application process. So we made the top 150 community colleges in the country. That permits us, and there's about 1,050 to give you an idea of what that means, that permits us to apply. And it was it was hard application because, it was about 30 pages long. Each field had a word limit. So Anna had to pare a lot of stuff down, and Kate had to pare a lot of stuff down. I almost wept when I read the final because of the wonderful accomplishments and achievements that faculty and staff at this institution are engaging in and day out. I mean, it's just the work that we do here is absolutely incredible. We submitted our application. Anna Douglas gave it a beauty that was just really incredible. If we make the top 10, we are at that point seriously competing for a $1 million prize that colleges can use for student success work. So it's a really great national program. Unless Aspen changes their practice, they actually visit the top 10 campuses. So it's a very, very detailed and thorough process, and we would be so honored to make the top 10. If we don't make the top 10, we will try again. That's what we'll do. So anyway, so I will conclude my report at that happy point, and we put a lot of hours into that application because we wanted it to be perfect. So, and again, we won't know for a few months, but I'm proud of the work that we did. So thank you.
Madam President, congratulations, and thank you for the update. Are there any further questions or comments at this point? We move on to item number 7, the discussion regarding class and program-specific enrollment and/or performance. including questions such as what are the trends, what are the issues, and how are we addressing student needs and requests. This is a new item that we added to the agenda in direct response to the issues and concerns that were brought up during discussions in the recent ISC meeting on August 11, and that relate to the enrollment numbers of TMCC's programs individually, individual program quality and adequacy, and program performance assessed and measured based upon academic, economic, and other relevant parameters. I believe that the IAC can add very specific additional value to the college if we include in our meetings, our work, our discussions, support with systematic and factual performance assessment of what is being offered to people in our community and to private sector companies in Northern Nevada. In addition to that, this agenda segment may help the college identify important trends, underlying problems, and possibly, most importantly, students continuously changing requirements and needs to stay on top of their career choices and professional development. Now, to make this agenda item truly meaningful, I believe that we intend to engage with and strongly involve the staff and faculty of TMCC in the gathering and analyzing of relevant program performance data, potential solutions to challenges, and proposals for changes as needed. The data and results gathered from this effort will be made available for discussion, possible action during the periodic IAC meetings in support of the President's work and your mission. Lastly, to this point, this being my first meeting with the IAC in this capacity, I want to express my delight and my appreciation for the fact that the Student Government Association is being presented during this meeting, and that Ms. Kimberly Tron, President of the SGA, is present to represent the students' interests. I believe that in addition to providing updates and reports, that we can possibly even better or continue to improve to strengthen the active dialogue and the open feedback loop between the SGA and the TMCC leadership. Madam President, distinguished faculty, members of the IAC, would you like to reflect upon this agenda item and offer any questions, any thoughts or ideas?
For the record, Nancy McCormick, I think this agenda item is a very important one, and I think with the volume and diversity of changes that are taking place in the community, it would sometimes be easy to try to please all people, and it's just not possible. So the importance of prioritizing the programs, evaluating where the greatest need is. You can't be all things to all people, and it might sometimes be easy to chase after something because of a particular group that really wants you to focus your attention on that. But at the same time, there may be other pressing needs within the community that need to be balanced out with those types of requests. So I think it's great to be able to contribute to the conversation about what is a reasonable expectation of what TMCC can accomplish, and really review the different programs because you cannot be all things to all people and be successful.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other comments, questions, thoughts on this item? We are going to fill this agenda segment with significantly more substance and data and results over the upcoming ISC meetings. To introduce this item to the agenda at this point helps us to start preparing for that, gathering relevant data, and just kick the segment off. Mm-hmm. We move on to item number 8, the ISC Council Members Report. As you will probably see, many of these items, or at least 7 and 8, are in direct reflection or in direct response to at least to notes that I took from our meeting on August 11. Again, this being my first meeting in this capacity with the ISC. The agenda item, the council member reports, this agenda item focuses on the follow-up on several problems and concerns that were mentioned and described during the August 11 meeting. Many of these issues were incredibly important, and I believe beyond the simple description of the problem, they require and deserve possibly root cause analyses, effective action plans to solve them. At least per my records, and my list is not exhaustive. These issues included the following. One of the issues brought up was the strength of TMCC's marketing machine and ability to reach students also in comparison with the university, especially as it relates to programs where TMCC has to be strong. So this is very much worth further investigation and analysis on the return and the effectiveness of the marketing dollars and marketing machine at this point. Secondly, the message clarity, specificity, and effectiveness of existing marketing material requires further analysis and continuous improvement. I'm in the process currently of working with TMCC's marketing department to gather historic and current data to help evaluate the success of various marketing campaigns, at least to help with that effort, TMCC's overall marketing strategy as it relates to actually reaching and communicating to the target audience, and to help understand and address their correlation to any existing potential enrollment underperformances. I'm hopeful that any of the results of this analysis, of this effort, can and will be shared during the upcoming TMCC IAC meeting. Other issues mentioned before include the poor resource utilization during the summer and the systemic lack, the system-specific lack of state funding for offering, for program offerings during the summer. Lastly, per my records, the process used to receive private sector input, and this is a topic that we will further discuss under agenda item 11. I'm not going to go too much into detail with this, but the process used to receive private sector input on the needs and requirements of new and modernized programs, as far as I remember, did not seem to be entirely clear or transparent. This would obviously make it very difficult to entirely assess how efficiently this type of input is being considered at TMCC and effectively integrated. A potential solution would be to share what the current process exactly looks like, provided it is defined, and then again verify if it is effective and verify if it is adhered to. Again, this is an agenda item that we will further discuss under point 11. At this point, are there any questions, comments, ideas? President Hilgerson.
So just to paraphrase, I think that this direction is a really useful one, and to summarize is to say that I understand that Elena's been working with her team on a marketing plan, and once we implement that plan, I think it's really important to assess the effectiveness of the plan, and that the IAC is willing to help with that.
Yes.
So, which I think is a really good direction. And I don't know if Elena Babnova, who oversees that area, I don't know if you want to offer any remarks on the most recent marketing plan and any elements of it that you want to talk about and when it can be shared with the IAC. So, if that's okay with the chair.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sure. Please, Elena. Dr. Hilgerson, I would like to offer just a quick comment on what you said. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. I do not want, this is my first meeting with the IAC as chair, and I do not intend to impose anything to the IAC. However, preparing for this function, for this role, I believe there is value potentially added if we simply use processes and methodology that we would use somewhere else in the private sector, simply to offer to help with this
Right.
effort. This is not intended to impose on. TMCC is doing a fantastic job, and whenever I join an organization, there's usually potential opportunities to improve, and that's what it is intended to do. Thank you. Sorry, Elena, please go ahead.
For the record, Elena Bobnova, Associate Vice President for Research Marketing and Web Services. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. And I had various notes prepared because I wasn't quite sure exactly where the conversation would go. And I'll just respond really quickly to Dr. Hilgerson's sort of intro about specifically the marketing plan. But I do have lots of other goodies if you're interested in terms of kind of addressing some of the marketing strategies that we currently have in place. So the marketing plan is very much in the works. So I really don't have a lot of specifics to share with you. What I think I might answer with is just kind of give you a flavor of how we started approaching strategic planning at this institution, and we intend to kind of use that strategy with the marketing plan as well. What we're trying to do is we're really trying to sort of synchronize, for lack of a better word, all of our strategic planning efforts so that we don't have kind of a shelf full of various planning documents that are not necessarily connected to one another. So we really made a concerted effort to write down to formatting and how those different plans look, the strategic enrollment management plan, strategic master plan for the college, diversity plan, and now I think recruitment plan as well, including the marketing plan that literally they would look very similar in terms of the format, so it's really easy for someone to navigate them. And really anchor the goals, the objectives, and most importantly, benchmarks. And that would be the data that we would use to analyze the how well we are staying on track and meeting those goals. That would be kind of similar across the board. So in other words, if we're talking about specific enrollment targets, whether you look at the strategic master plan, or you look at the enrollment management plan, or you look at the marketing plan, you're kind of looking at the same goal effectively that threads across the different planning efforts. And the difference is how each one of the areas of the college approaches accomplishing that goal. Because obviously, for instance, enrollment goal has just about bajillion of different moving parts to it, from marketing efforts, which is only one part of it, to intake processes, to program and academic and curricular planning, to connection to workforce needs in the area. So all of these things kind of have to be somewhat streamlined in terms of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so with the marketing plan, that is the approach that we are taking in drafting the plan, so that we look at the existing planning documents and we say, what are the priorities? Which are the target audiences that we are, or target student groups that we're going after in our master plan, in our enrollment management plan, and how do we organize the marketing operation that deploys the resources, strategies, and ideas in a way that effectively allows the college to recruit those types of students, retain them, and put the message out there and raise the profile of the college as the place where that type of training and those types of educational experiences can take place. This is a very broad answer to that question, but I could certainly go into a little more details if that's not quite.
Thank you, Elena.
Karen Hilgersson for the record, and adding to that a little bit. I think one of the basic functions of my work as the president of TMCC is planning, planning, planning. I mean, really. We completed the latest draft of the strategic master plan. I think it was at I want to say the May meeting of the Planning Council, but it was last spring. And the Planning Council, which consists of a wide representation from the campus community, we've got a schedule that we will review that plan once a year and potentially we'll do two things: verify that we're on the road to meeting our targets, or we have met our targets. That's the first thing that we will do. The second thing that we will do, and we have the months set aside, is March and April. The second thing that we will do is change the plan, that there'll be a month every year where if we want to make modifications to it as a living document, that we will do so. Now that strategic master plan is done, and it's pretty detailed, and I hope we can share all the plans with you at our next meeting, planning is happening all over campus, and all of those planning efforts are aligning to this strategic master plan that was completed in the spring, okay? So now, some units are taking longer than others, right? I know that there might even be a few areas at the college that haven't even started yet. But at some point soon, maybe hopefully in the next 6 months, that we will have sort of this widespread planning effort that all aligns with, as Elena said, connecting to the strategic master plan. Luckily, the NSHE goals are broad enough that the goals that NSHE will likely approve in January will very clearly connect to our strategic master plan. So that's all good, right? So I look forward to sharing with you all of the plans, and certainly at the next meeting, we can share with you the strategic master plan. We just had a really great presentation. The Student Services Department just completed their strategic master plan, so that one's done as well. There are many that are done. Some of them were done last year. A couple of them were done before my arrival, right, at the department or division level. But we're really trying hard this year to connect the dots and connect it all together. So, yes.
Ms. Shauna Squaga for the record. This is a little bit out of left field, but, you know, in light of these numbers that are showing up with the Nevada Promise Scholarship, do you think that's going to impact your enrollment numbers? Because, again, and have you seen that yet? Because what I find interesting is you obviously have connected with the school district, and what a great opportunity to direct sell with potential TMCC students. It seems to me like, from a moving the needle standpoint, this might be one of your best opportunities in terms of adding more kids into that pipeline. Not only are you making it more affordable, but you're just having a conversation around the community college. Whereas we really haven't had that direct, you know, super direct piece, I think. So I'm curious, are you seeing any, do you see potential there, or am I off base?
Do you want to speak to that, or should I speak to that, or both? Whatever. Yes. Yes. And, you know, one of the things that
1,900 is huge.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what your incoming class typically numbers.
Well, we're at about 1,800. However, we'll lose some of those, because we know now that nowadays students are, on average, the national research tells us that high school seniors are applying to at least 5 different colleges before they make their decision. Very common, largely because universities and colleges have made it very easy to apply in some respects. That said, our financial aid applications are way up this month, and that's directly linked, I believe, to Nevada Promise, that requires applicants to complete the FAFSA, even if they don't need the money. So, and if they don't qualify for a grant or a loan, the Promise will pay their tuition to TMCC. So even though you have to fill out the FAFSA, it's really not a need-based program, which is awesome. So I think it's a little too early to tell, but I see a great potential because of this wonderful program.
Yeah. See how that pans out.
Thank you very much, Elena. Interesting conversation. I just want to add to Michonne's point. I think that you're absolutely right, that this is one of our greatest vehicles at this point to communicate to young people, to the community effectively, and potentially very cost effectively. As far as marketing is concerned, now we need to understand that as the right marketing vehicle and market the Nevada Promise program more effectively. And I see, like many of us, opportunities for improvement there.
Yeah.
Great point. Are there any other questions, thoughts, or comments?
And we are, if I may add, we are absolutely counting on seeing some enrollment growth from the interest that we're seeing definitely around the Nevada Promise Scholarship. And as Dr. Hilgerson said, the fact that it will be open, that it is not needs-based, I think will definitely bring in students that ordinarily perhaps might have not come to us. And what we are trying to do, in addition to the pool of students that have already applied. We're talking about possibly reaching to those students they're still in high school. So technically, they normally wouldn't show up here until they graduate from high school in June, and they would be enrolling immediately following their high school graduation in fall. We were toying with the idea of reaching out to them and enticing them with a course so that we can capitalize on the possibilities of dual enrollment, which is another kind of a big priority for the college as well. So engaging with the local school district in a lot more broader and effective ways to grab those students, because we kind of know that there is at least about 30% of the graduating class out of the Washoe County School District that are perfectly positioned to continue on with higher education in terms of their high school graduation and diploma and their admissibility, are not really showing up at either UNR or TMCC immediately following their high school graduation, and we know that they're not going out of state. So there's definitely a potential out there for us to kind of tap into, whether, and I believe some of it will be done through the Nevada Promise Scholarship, some of it we hope to kind of crack through the dual enrollment options that we're committed to growing, both in terms of programmatic offerings and logistics, figuring out what can we do to make it easier and more possible for high school kids that are still in high school to experience college through dual enrollment. So we're kind of very excited on a variety of different fronts related to some of these initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you, Lena. We move on to item number 9, information on TMCC internship and apprenticeship programs. Dr. Hilgerson and Dr. Delpy, I suggest that we take a...
Forgot this one. Usually we go around down the table and each member provides a report on the actions.
I was looking for that, right.
And then we can take a
Thank
break.
you.
How about that?
Thank you. President is right. That's my mistake. The reports on the actions council members have taken to promote TMCC in the community and what was learned. Start with.
Oh, I'm down here, okay. Thanks, Almer. For the record, Brad Woodring, Foundation Chair for TMCC. I've been working very closely with Gretchen. Oh, she's leaving. You're right. Oh, I see. You come down here and give the report. But actually, as I'll be ending my my term as chair December 31st. But one of the things that we've been talking about is really starting to stand up a much stronger board, a much broader based board from individuals in the community. And next week we're meeting with a gentleman, an attorney, in our hopes to get him on our board as well. So we've identified individuals in the community from the different sectors, and hopefully, thank you very much for the list of the advisory councils as well, because I think there are some people on there as I was going through and I was making some check marks that we may want to contact. We've been slowly and methodically thinking about the types of individuals we want on that board, because, as you know, that really is the place where the monies come through, where how the bricks and mortars are built, those kinds of things, and identifying those individuals that are passionate about the work that we do at TMCC is how we're presenting it to them. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
For the record, Marisa Brown with the Nevada Hospital Association, and I continue to praise TMCC for the work that they do with regards to healthcare. I'm always so impressed with the marketing pieces that come out from the two of you with regards to what's being done, and we continue with our grant program. This year we have adult and dislocated worker funding. We're focusing on allied healthcare as well as new grad nurses. And what I'm finding with the allied healthcare piece is that there aren't enough internship programs out there. So I'm definitely reaching out to the hospitals to see if we can't partner with them on some of these things to at least get some of the allied healthcare professions in there for some internship programs. We're finding with the certification for the medical assistants that the program that TMCC offers here is not long enough. I think it's a 3-month program, and we have a lot of difficulty placing those students. And perhaps if there was an internship program associated with that, maybe it might be a little bit easier. But some of the other community colleges or programs that are out there are either a year or 18 months. And I think that we have a much easier time placing those students once they get their certificate. The other piece to that is, I don't know if TMCC tracks employment once they complete the certification program, but I think that would be helpful for us to know here. We had a student that went through the dental assistant program, and it was so difficult to find employment for her. And I know there's a demand out there, but
Sydney might be able to speak to that, our
okay,
Career
I
Center
would
person.
appreciate that.
Is that okay?
Sure. Of course we do.
Sydney Sullivan, I'm the manager for the Career Center, for the record. I can speak a little bit to the difficulties with tracking employment numbers. In the non-credit programs, the Career Center has not had an enormous amount of contact with those programs, although last year through the Nevada Works Youth Out of School program, we did place some students in what we called work experience because it was non-credit, but it was basically an internship, and Marcy can tell you a little more about where those were. The students in the health sciences, like dental assisting, usually placing them is not as difficult. I'm surprised to hear about this one that had a hard time. Usually these students are so connected with their faculty, and they've been through several clinicals on several sites, so employers have had a chance to try them out, and they've had a chance to try out employers. But as far as tracking actual employment numbers, I think Elena and I have been talking about that for about 14 years, figuring out an actual reliable system to do so. Because the college does not have access to the Department of Labor's information, and we have a little bit of, from what I understand, we can get aggregated numbers, but it's very difficult to parse that apart. If you have someone who graduated in HVAC who's working in a hospital, they're considered a healthcare worker now. So there's some difficulties with those numbers, even if we do get them. We can certainly do a calling campaign to get anecdotal numbers and wage information, but we at this point do not have a reliable way to say, of this cohort of these students from this program, this is how many are working in their field or outside of their field, and this is the average wage. We do not have a way to do that at this point, and I've been begging for it for years and years and years. So if anybody has any ideas or an in, I would love to know.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's what I've been up to lately. Thank you.
Susan Schilling from the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, for the record. The Sheriff's Office has several partnerships with TMCC that is ongoing: employment, internships, higher education opportunities for our staff. But one thing that I'd really like to share, and I'm sure everyone echoes it, is every time I come to this meeting, it's just so stimulating for me because I can't get this mentorship thing out of my head right now, so I'm trying to focus. Because I think that there's all these additional opportunities for us to not only promote TMCC, but to promote what it is we do in our everyday thing. And especially for me, I'm in a career field that gets a lot of bad publicity. Teachers get that as well, where it takes one bad apple to spoil the entire field. So the thought of being involved in a mentorship program here is just, I can't even sit still over it right now. And I'm so excited, and I just wanted to say thank you, because I hope that I provide something to this council, but it provides so much more to me, and my staff hates it because I go back and I say I have all these great ideas, go make it happen. So I just wanted to thank that as well. We have ongoing things that we do, but I love the new things that come up every time because it keeps the spark going. And I'm towards the end of my career, and I always need a spark. So thank you.
Great.
For the record, John Thurman with Nevada Works. And Nevada Works is the local workforce investment board for the northern 13 counties. And as our charge in coordinating workforce development activities, certainly TMCC is paramount in that, as are the other community colleges in the northern part of the state. And, you know, to the Promise program, I believe she's already gone, but from our last board meeting, thanks to Dr. Dalpy bringing it up there, we had several of our board members sign up to be mentors for the program, as well as they had several staff members also sign up to be mentors in that program. So I was excited to hear that and hear more about that this morning. As you might suspect, we are always promoting TMCC and their programs, the trainings that they provide, whether for credit or not for credit, whether they're certificate programs or degree path programs. They're vital to providing a workforce for the employers in our region. A couple of things came out this morning that I think this is the right time to bring those up, but part of what we do is the coordination of all this, and certainly, I didn't hear mentioned the sector councils that the state has, which are industry sector councils. Part of their charge is identifying where is the skills gap and or where are the skills, or what are the skills that are going to be needed going forward in their particular industry. So if you haven't made that connection, please allow me to assist in that capacity. Also, in the state of Nevada, in the governor's office, is now the Office of Workforce Innovation Nevada, headed up by Manny Lamar. So if you haven't made that contact, certainly let me assist in making that introduction in that regard. And maybe not so much, well, just a comment, you know, TMCC, as any educational institution, is a business. Kind of to Elmar's comment, you know, if you're not dropping black numbers to the bottom of the page, you know, something's got to change. So you know, you never can lose sight of that. But to all of that, we had recently, and this is, again, it wasn't directly TMCC, but it does relate. Our locally elected officials, which I have one from each of the 13 counties in northern Nevada that sit on our board, and they meet separately just as the locally elected officials. And we put together a meeting with education because as county commissioners, they felt they had absolutely no interaction with education in their own counties, which I found surprising. I also, in the process of this, learned a lot about the separation of education from county government that I didn't realize existed in the past. And so, but it was very good. Frank Woodbeck, as I'm sure within the here would know, was part of that. Manny was part of that. And then we had Chris Nelson from adult education and CTE programs at the state also in that conversation. If nothing else came out of it, discovery of what is going on at the K-12, post-secondary education levels in our state with those county commissioners was huge. And the networking that was able to take place and the contacts that they walked away with, and I know in Story County, for example, there's some ongoing things there that came out of that. So keep up the great work. Absolutely imperative that we have TMCC and the rest of the post-secondary education system that we have here in northern Nevada.
Did you want to introduce who you are? I'm not sure if everybody...
It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. All right. Are you curious about
Yes, I
Mr.
am.
Gary Cardinal?
Yes,
Who is filling in for John Albrecht?
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
so John will hopefully be back. I think all is going well. He had a back surgery. He should be back in a month. I think he was very happy to get this done. So, and thank you, Gary, for filling in for John. Yeah, we
Happy to
appreciate
do
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
For the record, Nancy McCormick. So just a few things. First, I'd like to apologize that Mike Kazimierz-Garcio is not here today, but he is at the other campus of TMCC, taking part on the panel that Dr. Hilgerson mentioned with Jim New. So he's over at that campus. We're always promoting TMCC in a variety of different ways. One thing I hadn't mentioned previously was the luncheon that we hosted with manufacturers in order to promote the industrial mechanic apprenticeship in particular, but the apprenticeship programs in general. And that was we got good participation from that and ongoing follow-ups with some of those attendees. So continuing to really push employers to take part in internship programs and to promote the apprenticeships within those. Also spoke at the Veterans Engage Breakfast on this past Friday over at the Edison campus, and this was really to help vets to better understand and connect with the opportunities that are out there in the community from an employment standpoint, and included veterans throughout the community from both TMCC and the university. And then lastly, always encouraging companies to connect with applicable departments at TMCC to make sure that they are reaching out and really engaging in a meaningful way, as opposed to just looking for what they can get from the community college, but also what they can give to the community college in time, talent, advice, leadership, and direction. So that's what we're busy doing, and continuing to see new companies coming to the region. Last month we had 12 site visits, so there isn't a real decline showing in the number of companies that are interested in the area. And of the top prospects, there's 9 on the list. 7 of those 9 are manufacturers. So continuing interest in the region for manufacturers.
Nancy, can you disclose which industries? These 12 or 9?
Of the 9, there were 7 that were manufacturing. 1 was a service industry, and 1 was a logistics and distribution.
Collie Hutter, I am the chairman of ClickBond Incorporated, a manufacturing company located in Carson City, and the former chair. Thank you, Omar. Happy dance. No, it was one of the great honors of my life to do this, and I'm just first of all, I just want to say thank you, and I'm very excited about all the things you're looking at and the approaches you're taking. I'm just thrilled. I'm very excited for all of us to be able to participate. Actually, what I've been working on recently, I've been in Rhode Island for the last 5 months, so due to family concerns. But one of the things that I have been doing, first of all, is always trying to sell TMCC to all of our new people that are coming into our company, making sure that their children know that we have UNR and TMCC. And actually, I think one of our new engineers will hopefully have 2 sons here fairly soon, so I'm very excited about that. And mentioning the sector councils, of course, they are actually noted in our charter that set up the institutional advisory councils. And I know the manufacturing one is alive and well, and if anybody wants to reach out to that, the gentleman whose chair sits across the hall from me at work, so we can find him. One of the things I did want to mention, that's something that we're working on at ClickBond, and I'm hoping that we can get some of the other larger local companies that have been here for a while, is I've been working with Gretchen to try and not just show up and, buy the tickets for this or to do that, but to have a broad plan to support community colleges and UNR as an ongoing part of the budgeting process at the company. So it's so that each year, we would have a fixed thing so that we can really support in a more meaningful way. And hopefully, once we figure out what we're doing, is to try and get the other companies, larger companies in the area, to come up with a similar type of thing so that we can support the things that you would like to be doing, but also perhaps even our own interests in the technology or those areas, but that it would be a fixed thing rather than just the tickets to this, that dinner, this event, to have stabilized perhaps the giving budgets from the industrial sector. So that's something I've been working on, and I apologize to Gretchen because I haven't gotten back to her. But this really started when we started getting requests from UNR for engineering, because we're part of their engineering group, and have been for many years, for their new buildings. So we wanted to respond and have an outlook for the community colleges, both WNC and TMCC, in the same manner of having a long-term strategy of giving. So that's what I'm working on.
Mashana Squaga, and I have been involved with recent efforts around the hospitality and tourism program, which I just think is really exciting. The industry has really never had a program like this to assist with their labor needs. So I think it's really got great potential. And so in the last couple of months, I know Vanina Coudrier, I think, is the person who's been putting together the curriculum. And I've tried to help by introducing her to people within the industry that can comment on that. At the same time, I think it's great to be going out to the industry and letting them know what TMC is trying to do. And so again, I think there's great potential that way of just building more and more alliances. So very excited to see the effort in that arena.
And may I make one addition to that, Omar, Chair? Please. I'd also want to add that Estela Gutierrez recently participated with Dr. Natalie Brown, our international lead for international students, and discovering that in most countries, there is a group of students who are really excited about this new program, and as international students may consider, when that program is unveiled and rolls out next fall, ideally, that they'll come study at TMCC because of all that program will offer them.
Right.
So there's also a real carrot for some of our international students
Well,
too.
and you know, it's not just gaming, it's all
Right.
of the ski industry, golf industry, airline industry, and when you look at some of the sports marketing potential, just everything, it really has a lot of legs. So I'm excited to get the gaming industry involved, but I really see it having just, again, great potential to hit a lot of areas, so all good.
And I'm very thankful to Interim Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Marie Merkel-Opoor. She's been taking the lead and doing the heavy lifting on that with, I always struggle pronouncing her name. Vanina, who's fantastic. And I think the two of them have really done such a great job. Marie is at a conference. That's why she couldn't be here this morning. So she's learning about learning communities at a conference. So anyway, but thank you for that.
Sure.
Good morning. I'm Deborah Beiersdorf, one of the new members on the council, and thank you so much. I am the new Chief Academic Officer for Washington County School District, 5 months on the job. A learning curve's been a little steep, but I've heard the word excited several times this morning, and I too am excited. I have very deep roots in Northern Nevada, deep roots in Washoe County. I was a high school principal here, Worcester High School. I've been an area superintendent prior to this position, and I've supervised most of the high schools in Washoe County. So I have always been a supporter of Truckee Meadows Community College. I am a product of a community college, not this one, Lake Tahoe Community College,
Okay,
not too far away. But I want to say, Chair Dave, thank you very much. We met, seems like it's been a long time. I think it was 100 degrees outside that day, so it's been a while for onboarding me. And I want to say thank you, everyone. I haven't had a chance to meet everybody here today, but I'm excited about the work. I'm excited about what's happening in our community, and I'm super excited about the opportunities that I have now to kind of be on the other end and helping make decisions and moving Washoe County School District forward. So thank you very much.
All right, for the record, Joe Nannini with UNR in the Career Studio. I am extremely excited to be a part of this organization in terms of, in my current role, I have the sort of honor of being able to help connect students with their community and help connect the community with students. And I think that I see that as an opportunity here as well. As well as that, also my involvement in nonprofit arts organizations in the community. I think that there is a lot of opportunity for growth in that area, and I can't wait to dive in.
Great.
Okay, so Kimberly Tran with the Student Government Association for the record. An update on student government. We're looking to increase presence on campus by doing class presentations and letting students know that we're here and that we want feedback. In addition, we're looking at student engagement with activities. We have a new design competition going out to our students, so we're hoping to get submissions. And we are looking to facilitate our processes with working with students so that more students can be engaged with us. We are going to the NACA conference this weekend, and we're going to interact with other institutions to see how we can better serve our students. Additionally, we've been working closely with marketing, so I'd like to thank them. And I'd just like to also address how I'm so thankful for TMCC. As a high school student and a college student currently, I really, over the past 3 years, have seen myself grow. The resources and the information that they share with the students is really great. I've been able to get internships. The faculty have been really supportive and engaging, and I really appreciate the dual enrollment program. I'm with TMCC High School, and it's excellent. Additionally, I have friends who are dually enrolled in classes currently, and they have different programs that make it really affordable. I have a friend who comes from like a low-income background, and they have a program that allowed her to take classes here this semester, and she couldn't have taken it otherwise, and it's very exciting for her. Also, Nevada Promise, I have a few friends that have applied to that, so that's also wonderful. And overall, I'm really looking forward to working with all of you, and I appreciate all the strives of improvement you've been making for TMCC.
Thank you.
Heather Sally, I'm the classified president. Thank you for allowing me to attend. We're working on building fundraising for our classified staff and to provide more opportunities to engage together as a staff, providing fundraising to engage them into more education, more book scholarships. And one of our recent fundraisers that are coming up is the turkey raffle, and then we have a craft fair that's coming up shortly after that. So we're just trying to increase our classified staff to promote education and promote being inclusive with each other and developing a strong, transparent staff and with our administration as well.
Cheryl Cardoza for the record. I'm the Faculty Senate Chair at TMCC. The Faculty Senate works a lot with shared governance principles, but also we are hugely involved in curriculum. So some of the questions you have about how programs and curriculum are passed would come through faculty. And Faculty Senate in particular, we have a curriculum review committee that handles most of those things. So that would be of pertinence to this body. Also, as the department chair of the English department, I'm involved in starting some new kinds of advisory committees, and that is for some of the liberal arts. So some of the liberal arts have been asked to start advisory committees as well, and so that might also be something of interest to you.
For the record, Scott Huber, faculty member at TMCC. I think it's critically important that business and the community colleges align. It's sorely needed, and I think there's much work that can be done. I think it's also very important for TMCC and the business community to encourage the Washoe County students to get engaged early on so that they get in the pipeline and begin to understand the needs of business as well as attending higher education. And of course, faculty are fully behind this whole concept. So we appreciate your efforts and good luck as you go forward.
Thank you so much. The work that this board and the members of the TMCC IAC and everyone who's present here are doing is incredibly valuable, and I'm particularly excited about the diversity of functions and roles that we have represented right here in this room right now. Listening to you all the way from Councilmember Schilling's enthusiasm, which is infectious, the clever, the smart program that former Chair Hutter's company is implementing at Clickbond in Carson City. That's very interesting. I look forward to hearing more about that. The encouraging numbers and updates that Vice Chair McCormick shared with us about new companies moving to the area, especially in those business aspects and industries that we want in the area. Councilmember Tron's frontline feedback and the faculty's feedback and support and buy-in into the effort that we are undertaking is very encouraging. Thank you very much for all the work that is being done. It's almost 10:30. I suggest that we take a 10-minute recess and continue or resume at 10:40. We are moving on to agenda item number 9, information on TMCC internship and apprenticeship program, presented by President Hilgersim and Dr. Delpy.
Well, and I'm not doing much. I just get to sit back and enjoy the wonderful work of Dr. Kyle Dalpy, the Interim Dean of Technical Sciences, and Marcy Yanacchione, the TMCC Internship Coordinator.
So thank you, Kyle Dalpy, for the record, Interim Dean of Technical Sciences. A couple things to note. We do have some guests in the audience that are willing to speak to a deeper level of apprenticeships. And I'll just ask them to wave. Randy, Chad, and Alan in the back we all sit on the Northern Nevada Apprenticeship Coordinator Board, and that is the one of the programs that we have that's in your packet. Again, we're talking about apprenticeships, and Marcy will talk about interns just a little bit. We have two pieces of apprenticeships, the Coordinators Association Apprenticeship Programs, which might be considered, it's a longer-term program here, might be considered the more traditional model here, where it's an educational program sponsored by a partner, a union-affiliated partner. There's lists in there: field iron workers, carpenters, electrical, plumbers, and pipe fitters, that they run students through in a 3 to 5 year program, which goes from apprentice to journeyman, and they're working with benefits pay at the time they run through that. At the same time, the college is the partner that wraps around a certificate and a degree program. So when that student progresses through, earns a certificate and a degree, at the same time they move from apprentice to journeyman. I said that a little quickly. If you have questions, let me know. But it's a way that we the student gets kind of both pieces of it, so that they're getting the maximum out of their educational program and learning program. The second piece, which is actually the first on the handout, is the American Apprenticeship Grant. It's a U.S. Department of Labor initiative. Cheryl Olson's the program director. She's in the back here. You've probably talked to her. This program is, and again, if there's a deep dive on this, I'm happy to try to answer it or bring up one of the others. But this is awarded to TMCC in 2015. And what this one really does is take almost your existing incumbent workforce and can retrain them at no or partial cost to the employer. So if you're an employer who has an employee that you want to upskill from a level 1 to a level 2, 3 to 4, that kind of thing, we can provide the training at the college, and the employer can send the employee back under the grant and then have them retrained or upskilled so that they can move up in their career pathway. That is a $2.9 million Department of Labor grant, and we're moving forward on that with several apprentices already in the pipeline and several other letters of commitment. So with that, that's the quick overview of apprenticeships, and I'll let Marcy come up, talk a little about internships, and then I guess we can discuss field questions or however you'd like to proceed. Thanks.
Thank you so much for allowing me this morning to talk about our internship program here at TMCC. I feel very honored to have been chosen to oversee this program and facilitate it. My background is in human resources management, so I really feel that I have a lot to offer the students and also partner well with employers. And so when I was asked from the president's office if I would be willing to put something together so that you could learn a little bit more about our internship program, I put together really quickly the employer benefits of an intern. And I think you have that information here. We have made it so simple for employers to partner with us so that they have an opportunity to have one of our students, when they're in their last semester here before they either transfer to UNR or they complete their associate's degree. And we have a really great program where I have 67 employers currently right now that are participating, that we have side agreements on. Our internship program is credit-based, so our students are getting credit, and which makes it it's really very worthwhile, and I've been able to produce the program where we've gone from an unpaid internship to a paid internship opportunity for our students. We take it really, really seriously. I would love the opportunity to partner more with more employers, because sometimes we have students who come and we're not able to place them because I don't have an employer. Sometimes I have an employer and I can't find a student. So I would love to make this program more robust and have an opportunity to do that. The other thing is, we were trying to see how we could make this more attractive, and we developed a program that's transferable now to UNR. It's called the IDS 299, and students can take that as an elective here, and they transfer those credits to UNR. So it's very beneficial for our students if they're going to transfer to UNR or UNLV, any one of the NSHE colleges. So also, I think my numbers probably don't compete like UNR's numbers, Joe, but and that's really okay because we're different schools. But I've partnered as well with the Career Studio at UNR, and we do see a need why both of us have students and we try to place them together. I've partnered with Nancy as well through EDON, and we've also started working with our startup companies. So we have a startup company fair that we introduce our students to, and we've partnered in the community. So we have so many different things that we're trying to introduce, and Sid and I are working as well to work very closely with some of our international students. So we're going to be able to place a lot of our international students on work-based learning opportunities. So, yes, any questions?
If I could, Kyle Delpy again for the record, I'd like to make one quick correction and one other comment. Sorry. I mentioned the apprenticeship initiative, and although it does include incumbent workers, it's not exclusively for incumbent workers. It could be for anybody who's interested in training. And also next week, this is a timely announcement, next week is National Apprenticeship Week, and so there'll be more high-profile, hopefully stories on Apprenticeship Week and that sort of thing. And then going back to what President Hilgerson was saying about the construction industries, with that, some of the programs she mentioned that are supporting the construction industry are some of the partners we have in the room here. If you'd like more depth on what they have in the pipeline for people in the pipe fitters and that kind of thing, they're here to answer questions as well. So,
Kyle, can you provide just a brief definition of apprenticeship and and I know there's more than one model, but I think that would be helpful for some of the IAC members.
Yes, Kyle Dalpy for the record again. So I do have a formal definition. I'm going to see if I can call it up, but because I don't want to make it confusing. We did not include that in the product, but and then Randy. So I'm going to just go through it without necessarily using the formal definition. Department of Labor defines it, but it depends on the program that we have. It's a training program in order to provide a training component to a person to put them into the workforce. I mean, at the bottom, at the bare minimum. Now, we do have some criteria around that. Like, for example, the apprenticeship initiative requires a certain number of hours to be completed, as does the union apprenticeships as well.
It's a member Thurman.
Mr. Chair, John Thurman for the record. Just a question, and it's kind of a follow-up to information that came out of Bill Anderson's office, the chief from the research and analysis for the state. But when they did an analysis of the labor force for construction prior to the recession, we were way above the national average. And then, of course, during the recession, we went below the national average. And right now, the most recent numbers indicate that our number of individuals employed in construction as a percentage of the total population is in line with the national average. So is that part of how we're looking going forward for construction? Do we need, I don't want us to get where we were way above, and then should there be another recession, we have a tremendous exodus for that particular workforce.
Right. So Kyle Dalpy, for the record. So one of the things out of the recession is if you pulled out the unemployed construction, we ended up matching closer to the national average on unemployment overall. And so I think that's what you're talking about is if we were to have a downturn, or if, for say, things like the major projects in the region, which includes the Gigafactory work, when they're completed, those people need to find their way into other positions. So one of the things that we do, and I'd like actually to maybe invite Randy up, if the chair and President Hilgerson would be okay with that, because some of the things we've talked about is through the trade programs that support the construction industry. So Randy can speak more globally on some of it, but being pipe fitters, that sort of thing, they actually maintain an equilibrium with what they see the market as with the number of apprentices in the pipeline, so that they don't put out too many or too few as we get 5 years out, because it is a 3 to 5 year commitment. And that's one of those things that we look at. And so although we hear right now that we do need more people, we have to be very careful, like President Hilgerson said, that we don't ramp up a huge construction program that puts a number of people out in the workforce that are going to find themselves unemployed. But we could ramp up something that accommodates the need right now and handles some people. For example, we have a grant with the Children's Cabinet that we're running about 20 students through, and we could mirror that to more of an adult population and create something. So, youth build, yes. Yep. So if I could, Randy, do you want to speak on the on the, maybe your program just a little bit and how you maintain that flow of students? So there you go.
Thank you, council members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. My name's Randy Canali. For the record, I'm training coordinator for the plumbers and pipe fitters, pipe welders, and HVAC service techs apprenticeship program here in Reno. We currently have over 130 apprentices in our program. And yes, back you're talking about in the previous periods, we probably topped out when we were busy before the downturn, around 120, 130. We're right there about coming back to that number right now. As far as the numbers, I think Kyle did a very good presentation to you on what we do. We do have to walk that fine line. It's obvious that we're going to need numbers that are projected to be somewhere around 20,000 or more construction workers over the next 5 to 10 years. But as Kyle said, we make a 3 to 5 year commitment. Our programs are 5 and 4 year programs, and we make commitments to these people. We're not bringing them in by huge numbers that we can't sustain to keep their employability when they come in. All our training programs are joint efforts between the union members and their signatory contractors. So as well as representing all the union members that are in our programs, as an example, the plumbers and pipe fitters, we have over 30 contractors that we are associated with that are out there doing the work. Several large names that are local contractors that I'm sure you've heard of before. They're big people in the community. They do a lot of work in the community outside of just their actual jobs. And so it is very important. So as far as what you're talking about on the numbers, even at that, when there was that initial shortage, we were saying, well, use the large plant, the Gigafactory that's going out south of town. Just in plumbers and pipe fitters, we have dispatched at one point in this year over 800 people that worked on that job. Now, of those, we did not have that many members in our union right then, and you can't just bring in your 300 employees short or something like that. You can't bring in 300 first-year apprentices and man these jobs. It doesn't work that way. So we've had to bring in skilled people as well as bringing in the training, and we are bringing our numbers up to fill those positions. And that's just one of the positions or one of the jobs that we are talking about. But you can't also hire first-year apprentices, hire 30 first-year apprentices, 20 second-year apprentices, 30 more third-year apprentices. You can really only bring in first-year apprentices with very few exceptions. Then you have to create that second-year apprentice, and that's by going through the first-year program. And it's a combination. These are registered apprenticeship programs that require so many hours per year of on-the-job training and so many years per hour that in classroom training. These are all registered programs with the state, the ones that are associated with NACA. And again, we have very strict standards that we have to live by, but they are regulated, but they're great opportunities. We look at is it's not just a job, these are career opportunities. I mean, our apprentices go out and not only do they have a job when they actually start, we talk about, if you look at the wage and benefit packages that most of these apprentices have, by the time they go through a 4 or 5 year program, they've actually, in wage and benefits, acquired approximately $200,000 or more in wage and benefits as they're learning their positions. And then when they turn out, a journeyman plumber is, pipe fitter is in the almost $40 an hour range, and that's before the benefit packages of insurance, retirement plans, things like that. And I also want to say, we've been long-term members with Truckee Meadows Community College, and we're proud of that. In fact, we were trying to figure out when we first had our first MOU with your college, and it was sometime back either early 80s, possibly even back to the late 70s. And I just want to assure you, Madam President, our numbers did go down, but we never left you. We've always been with you. We've always been with you. Just a couple of our programs, and we have 11 registered apprenticeship programs that are in NACA right now, and we have several hundred registered apprentices that are registered with TMCC as students. So you are helping in that field, and you are manning people in there. And not only are these, when they graduate, I'll give, and the numbers went down, of course, during the downturn. But normally our programs have in the high 70s to mid 80 turnout rates that actually get their certificates. And we have several programs that are right now, and we are collaborating with TMCC and putting them through additional classes. And Alan Darney, I think, may come up and talk to you about that. But his entire program, at some point, he is hoping that they will all graduate with associate's degrees in apprenticeship. That is one of your degree-seeking programs. And ultimately, I think most of our programs are hoping to achieve that as well. So I've kind of rambled on here, and I apologize for that, and I hope I've supplied some more information, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if I maybe left some holes out. I wasn't prepared to speak today, but as you can tell, I apologize. But it's a pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. And if there are any questions, if not, if Alan would like to.
Wait, just one, you're at capacity right now?
No.
Okay.
Our capacity, it's not that we have capacity. It's kind of like we can only bring in so many at a time. And again, we can't just flood the market with 50 first-year apprentices.
Sure. Okay.
We've been bringing in 2 classes a year right now. We bring them in on similar to the TMCC semester programs. We bring them in one group in May, approximately, after high school graduation, May to June, so that we can get some of the students that may be interested in the programs. And then we're actually taking interviews right now. We will be holding interviews in December so that we will bring another program at the start of I guess it would be your winter or classes. We'll be bringing them in approximately in January.
And just one kind of follow-up question to that, and I'm sure there's if you will, an eligibility threshold they have to cross. But are you finding it difficult to locate and attract qualified and eligible individuals to your programs?
As of late, I would say no. We are averaging 70, 80 applicants for usually anywhere from 12 to 18 apprenticeship positions at each time. I do not think that's going to continue. There is a shortage, and there is a shortage that is coming, and we do need to get that word out. And one of the biggest words that we're trying to get out is, we don't want to take the next doctor. We don't want to take the next scientist who's going to, cure cancer or anything like that. But not everyone is fit into that category, and these are actual, again, career opportunities that can give a very good living and create a good living for their families by going through these programs. And we are, through our numbers, trying to make sure that it's sustainable. But right now, You know, we talk about bringing in these larger numbers than what we have in the past. The great majority of construction workers out there are over the age of 50. They're going to be retiring soon. We need to fill these positions, not just for the work now, but for the work in 10 years. And so these numbers may not be out of line.
How high is the dropout rate?
It's the dropout rate, and that's where I say we usually have, I would say that we normally average about an 80% completion rate. And it can happen for multiple reasons. It can be family emergencies. It can be issues. They find out it's not what they wanted to do. There are many different reasons for that. I would say part of it was there wasn't enough work in the past, and that brought those numbers actually down. We have not had that high of a dropout rate in the last couple of years, and I don't anticipate it being very high right now either. But there is always, you know, the potential.
Thank you very much for your insight. Any more questions?
Well, I just wanted to thank you. I think you did a great job, and I think it really, and it also, I think, and I knew you never left me because last summer I helped hand out some of the diplomas, the TMCC diplomas that some of the apprentices who were finishing up earned, and it was just an honor for me to participate in that. So thank you.
And it was an honor to have you there.
And I also think that you provided a definition that we can start to understand what's the life of an apprentice like. The last question I have is, if I'm a brand new apprentice, do I get paid a little bit for the OJT part right away?
You are paid immediately.
Okay,
Our
so that's a
beginning
really nice
apprentices, and they average, okay, by our standards, you have to have, and this is just ours, 246 hours of classroom-related technical instruction, of classroom time, and a minimum of 1,650 work hours in the field during that time. And again, our starting rate on the check wage is $18 an hour for a first-year apprentice just starting out, and that does not include the approximately $10 benefit package. I mean, they come in, and this isn't just for kids. These people come in, and their insurance, once it kicks in, it covers not just them, it covers their entire family, and we know how important that is, and these are excellent insurance programs. In our program, we have an annuity and a defined benefit retirement program. So there are, you know, not only is this a career while you're going through it, but then you actually can retire with a little bit of dignity as well when the time does come.
Great, thank you.
I want to thank you for the great work that you're doing, and if I may, I just want to point out something why this hits home. The valuable work that you do and the TMCC is doing in form of developing and offering these apprenticeship systems. As you may have figured, I grew up outside the United States. I grew up in Germany. I was very fortunate to get my first degree, my first post-secondary, exactly in form of a 3.5-year apprenticeship back in Germany in automotive engineering. And then after that, you usually can decide, you know, how you proceed. If you go to the university, if you just dive right in and just focus on working in that profession that you have chosen at that point. I believe that that in Germany, in an economy, in an export economy and very manufacturing-focused economy, that is typically significantly more expensive than the rest of the world. It is almost paradox why the German economy is so strong and competes so well with the rest of the world. I wholeheartedly believe that the apprenticeship system that has been in existence for several hundred years in Germany is, and it is highly respected and appreciated and matured, that it is one of the driving reasons for especially their manufacturing and their export economy success. And if we can not replicate, but develop the strength back in the United States, especially in this time, I am extremely excited about this, and I thank you for your work.
Well, thank you, and yes, you are right. It's not. It may be a new term that's going around, but it's not brand new. Apprenticeship's been around.
It's a proven system. You're absolutely right.
Yes. So thank you.
Are there any? Dr. Delpy?
So if there's any other questions, Kyle Dalpy for the record.
Just one
yeah.
one quick one. I noticed in your paperwork that there's, we think of apprenticeship as being the trades, and there's a mention of healthcare apprenticeships. Has anything been done in that industry sector to develop an apprenticeship program? Because it seems like they're eligible.
They are eligible, and through the apprenticeship grant, there is work being done in the allied health sector, which includes nursing, CNAs, that sort of thing.
Who is doing that? Who does that? Does that come through the community college? Do
Correct.
you- Okay.
We provide the
So
training.
you're working
We're in
towards that.
partnership. Yeah, Cheryl with her, the program director for the grant. We meet with we could expand it to any industry. The grant started as advanced manufacturing, and it moved into expanding it to healthcare and some other sectors. And so moving that in there, we found a need in that realm, and then we define it and write up the agreement with the provider, whoever that may be, and then establish the apprenticeship.
Has that actually begun, though, as far as identifying a provider?
Yes, it has.
Great.
So,
Marisa.
Marissa, please.
Marisa Brown for the record with the Nevada Hospital Association. And Michelle, I can respond to that because, you know, we work very closely with the hospitals. I know that, and I'm not sure if Renown has started it yet, but I know they looked at it. And I know Carson Tahoe has a very robust program for them. And they capture the nurses when they're students in their last semester of college. And then they integrate them into their workforce there, and they pay them, and they pay them a fairly good salary. And then once they pass their licensure exam, they move them into full capacity nursing. So, and it's working very well. They're finding it decreases their costs for orientation, and it also helps with retention.
Hi, Cheryl Olson for the record. Actually, TMCC is partnering with Renown Health, and we have a CNA apprenticeship program that is actually, they're about to graduate from the related technical instruction next week, which perfectly timed with National Apprenticeship Week. We're happy to coordinate that. But the first cohort has been extremely successful, and Renown has been so excited about this process that we're planning on the next cohort to start in January.
How large is it?
We're at 9, and the capacity of the facility is 10. So it's we're actually holding all of the related technical instruction at Renown. So the TMCC professor does the instruction and the clinical rotations at Renown. So it's been a very good partnership between the two.
Would you have the capacity to add another hospital like Northern Nevada?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We'd love
just
to add
curious.
another hospital.
May I ask a question? And what about behavioral health? Marissa, I remember you brought up behavioral health. Can apprenticeship be somehow connected to some of the behavioral health agencies, including the new one that you mentioned a few months ago?
Marisa Brown for the record. Our program is more of kind of an 8-hour workshop that we do for those that qualify for our workforce grant. I think that there are some nurses out there, new grad nurses, that are interested in behavioral health. And I think that there is a big demand. I mean, as I talked to the council before, there's a new freestanding behavioral health facility that's opening up here. It's going to have 120 beds. And we have such a need for our behavioral health patients. There's not enough resources. And it's a complicated thing, but I think that to provide some mentorship or apprenticeship programs for those types of things would be really beneficial too. I mean, obviously there's not only freestanding psych facilities or hospitals that have behavioral health units or general psych units, but there's also a lot of other resources for behavioral health patients that utilize nurses that are freestanding facilities too. So I think that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. We're currently working with the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation to look to see what types of additional healthcare occupations that we can develop apprenticeships in. Currently, there's about 1,000 apprenticeable occupations that are approved within the Department of Labor. Nursing traditionally has not been an apprenticeable occupation unless it's a specialized nursing. So we're working to develop specialized nursing, but behavioral health very much could be one of those additional occupations that we look into, and we'd love to
That would be
that
great.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I comment one thing on clarifying a little bit about apprentices outside of the wonderful job that the unions are doing. The traditional manufacturing, they are all paid, and I'm sure they would, that the thing is, it is a paid job. And although we don't have the benefits that the plumbers and the other pipe fitters have, generally a standard manufacturing apprenticeship is almost 4,000 hours of work, plus instruction, plus the contract that you have with the Department of Labor lays out exactly how they are paid, and they get increases every 6 months. So again, they will come out at quite a high wage. And the program that the grant covered really helps out the employer, because the person has to be employed, helps the employer with some of the costs of the education portion. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions or comments? The next agenda item, discussion on possible action related to new program development, ties right into this discussion that we're having right now, and I'm excited to get a little bit further into detail. So 2 key questions are: how are new programs and curricula introduced? What programs may be missing from TMCC offerings, or what programs may need updating? I'm sure that there are many other questions related to this. Let's start with these 2. Again, per my records, and I believe, I believe this is accurate. 2 program initiatives that were mentioned during the recent meeting in August, the August 11 meeting, that I would like to speak about. One of them was a new program specifically for the hospitality and the culinary industry, as suggested by Councilmember Asquaga. Perhaps you may want to share an update on the status of that program development. And secondly, I invite us to speak about this, to discuss this. A standalone program for the education and training of quality assurance, quality engineering, and quality management professionals. To be clear, I'm not talking about adding a few hours of how to operate a caliper or a micrometer, or to read a form, or how to fill out an inspection sheet to this course or to that course or to existing programs. I'm talking about creating a standalone program the same way it is being done in other parts of the country, and for that matter, of the world. Representing the private sector, manufacturing when I'm not here, I personally encourage and try to drive forward the development of this program. It's pretty simple. Highly regulated industries such as the aerospace industry, medical devices, pharmaceutical industry, and whether it's services or goods. And on top of that, even the significantly bigger spectrum of supplier industries. For pharmaceuticals and medical devices, it's packaging, pharmaceutical packaging, highly regulated, consumables, disposables manufacturers. To these companies are typically high-margin industries that offer countless well-paying or possibly high-paying jobs, typically way above average, and they bring prosperity to communities. They bring prosperity and opportunity. Personally, I would love to see a significantly higher influx of these industries and companies to our area. In order for these companies to exist, they have to comply with domestic and international regulatory frameworks, including ISO standards, ANSI standards, military specifications, and several U.S. Code of Federal Regulation, or titles of the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR. There's many others. The list is very long. So the jobs created in these fields include a variety of practical hands-on professions that typically require a large set of skills, as well as very strategic management roles requiring rather theoretic education, but demanding education. This is not something that you learn on the fly. This is something that you do well when you've studied it, when you were trained, when you are skilled in this field. The typical professions and this is a long list, include quality inspector, quality technicians, quality engineers, quality managers, and then obviously, depending on the hierarchy, quality directors, VP of qualities. You see this everywhere in demanding industries, in highly regulated industries, especially in the Northeast, in the upper Midwest, in Texas, in Florida. There are industries that I would like to see settling in Northern Nevada. In addition to that, or parallel, we have the entire auditing, the regulatory compliance side, internal auditors, external auditors, and quality systems auditors. So you see the variety, the number of professions that you can choose in this field. I've had some very promising initial conversations with Marie Mergolopour, and I offered to get actively involved in creating this program. For the industries that I mentioned, the way I see it, the lack of adequately trained and educated professionals in these fields has been a serious concern, possibly keeping them from moving to this area the way we want this. And I believe that we should, that we can, and that we must change this. I open this up for discussion and welcome your comments. And Councilmember Asquaga, if you would like to share a brief update on the development of the program that you're initiating or
Yeah.
proposing.
Actually, I am not initiating or proposing it, so please, I don't want to misrepresent that. And I have to give credit, frankly, I know Vanina's not here, nor Dr. Mergolopour, but they have spent what I, and I don't want to get off track from your conversation around quality engineering, because this is quite a bit different. And it's different in that we have a tourism industry here that is very well formed. And though there may be tremendous efforts to diversify the economy, which I think is great, there will always be a footprint here that is going to be oriented towards tourism and hospitality. It's here. And unfortunately, and I don't know why not, there's never, I shouldn't say never, because I think there's been some connection with community college, always. But I think there's such an opportunity to have a greater connection, because this, frankly, fits our industry, I think, very well. So, as I saw it, basically, Dr. Mergolopour has been in contact with UNLV, and the associate's degree program looks very much like the first 2 years of going through the hospitality program down in Las Vegas, which I think is a great start. I think that's really smart, and frankly, for our industry, and I think also for Vail Industries and some of the other large companies that are here that are dealing with hospitality, I think it's somebody going through this program, it's going to be a great signal to all of us that they're interested in pursuing a career in our industry. And I would have loved to have had that when I was CEO of the Nugget, knowing that there were people that were willing to go through the rigor of classwork and hopefully down the road some sort of apprenticeship type program, and that would come out and frankly maybe be in our first rung of management. So that, I think, is, again, kind of a long-winded.
Can I add to that? Or, actually, Cheryl Cardoza has her hand up too, but it's up to you, Chair. I was going to go through the process of ABC with that. And then, so just to kind of backtrack a little bit, and I think that the hospitality program is a great example of A, B, and C that you see on your agenda. So that program was introduced because of the identification of the need for a new theater and an expansion of culinary arts as a way to entice more interest in raising funds for a theater, which was the EATS program. I asked Marie Mergolopour at the time, and at the time the former VPAA, to work on a needs assessment. And so the first step in considering a new program is some type of a needs assessment. And you actually were the one, Michonne, you probably don't remember this, about over a year ago, where you said, gosh, it'd be great if somebody did a needs assessment. So really about a year ago, Marie was the dean at the time, agreed to do the needs assessment. So she did research. We worked with some EDON statistics because there was an EDON meeting where some of that was covered. The needs assessment not only showed that an expansion of culinary arts was a good idea, but it also showed that aligned closely with that was hospitality and entrepreneurship. So after Marie did the needs assessment, then she said, do you mind, can I visit UNLV, spend a day? Of course. And so then that was, again, more information. So I think if you go to A, when a program is sort of introduced from the community, and there's many ways. I mean, a program can also be introduced by a faculty member or a department, and those can be just as legitimate and just as necessary. But in this case, this is a program that originally started with the community saying, gee, but why aren't we doing this, right? The next step is some kind of a needs assessment and some internal research. And then Marie had to work through the budget process and requested kind of a temporary position to explore it further and begin to develop preliminary curriculum, which was approved. And now a permanent position will work its way through the budget process too. So all of that is also going to have to be vetted and approved and sort of rounded out by faculty through the Faculty Senate process. And maybe Cheryl Cardoza would like to speak to that a little bit. But that's the process, and it's very reiterative, meaning all along that process there's dialogue going back and forth so that by the time that program is launched, and the goal here is fall of 18, we have a really good, high-quality program that will certainly have hiccups during the first year, but it will be still a good to great program. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit kind of to cover ABC and a very brief description of the process when a new program is sort of inspired by a community need.
Thank you, Karin Hilgerson. This is Cheryl Cardoza, for the record, Faculty Senate Chair at TMCC. Karin did a great job of capturing the wonderful work that Marie Mergolo reported on this particular degree. But generally, after a degree has been proposed, it goes through our curriculum review committee. They do a vetting process that's pretty intensive on that. It has to be proposed in a certain timeline so that it can also go before the Board of Regents, because it has to be approved if it's a new degree through the Board of Regents. So there's timelines that had to be done in terms of that. It's already in process. Then it gets put through Faculty Senate on the consent agenda and approved through that process also, so the senators also get a chance to put some feedback. After that, it goes on to the President's desk and then to the Board of Regents. So that gives you kind of an idea of how much it takes to put a program into place. And I think that the reason why we have this kind of rigor is to make sure, as Karin suggested just now, that we do have a good program when we walk forward with it and when we start to offer it to students.
And just one more comment on the very front end. When I met with Vanina, I was really impressed with how many people in the industry she reached out to look at her program. So, you end with what she's referring to, this really serious vetting problem or program over the curriculum, but hopefully you're getting a lot of input on the very front end from the industry saying, did you think of this? You might want to think about this. One of the gentleman that I turned her on to was a UNLV grad that worked for us running our hotel operation. And I thought he had great feedback regarding some of the union issues, HR issues, things like that. So, I think you're just getting more and more data as you go along. But I thought she did a really nice job in terms of how far she reached to get input. So I do think there's going to be a lot of hiccups along the way, but I think you've done a lot of things right at the same time.
So with respect to the proposal of implementing and developing a quality management, quality engineering program. Cheryl, thank you for your insights as I'm still getting up to speed on the many processes and systems that we have at TMCC. This is particularly interesting to me to understand the Curricular Review Committee. The Curricular Review Committee process and the processes around to see how we can move the development of hospitality programs, industrial quality assurance programs, and other programs forward.
I wanted to add something, Cheryl Cardoza again for the record. I know that we have started looking into quality management and assurance degrees, and that our previous vice president was looking at that, and I assume that Marie will take up that mantle as well, and she'll be a good advocate for that. But you'll also want to talk to Dean Dalpy, because that would be where that degree might be housed, is in his division. So I think it's a great idea, because I actually teach engineers how to write, so I work with technical writing, so I actually understand what some of these needs are, and I think this is a degree that is needed here at TMCC.
I believe you're right, and thank you. I've had, as I said, several conversations with Dr. Mergelapour. She's very excited about the development of this program, and from my conversations with Dr. Dalpy, I get the same sense. Thank you for that. We move on to, did I skip anything?
Nope.
Oh, please.
Nancy McCormick, just a quick question. I'm assuming there's a corresponding process of evaluation for programs that maybe aren't getting the enrollment that you'd like to see, and just wanted to ask a quick question about how do you remove programs that perhaps you had high hopes for, and at the time they were implemented there was great demand for, but because of the changes in the community they are no longer attracting students or no longer as relevant as they may have been when they were implemented originally.
So we do have a program unit review process that ideally gets at that. And at this point, I think most, if not all, of our programs are doing very well. However, I also think that's something that we need to look at and analyze and make sure, I think the process, just looking at it with the relatively new presidential eyes, there are things that we could add to the process to get at that problem that are not yet in the TMCC process. And right now, it's not a big issue, but it could be a big issue 3 years from now if certain programs are losing enrollment and there's not a clear, and I would also add compassionate process to help with the faculty or staff who may be counting on those programs. And I've worked at colleges where if you have a really good proactive process, then you can offer retraining options to faculty and staff engaged in those processes so that they continue to work for the college, especially, when they're really fantastic as educators. So that's my just initial assessment of that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We move on to agenda item number 11.
I think, Marisa had her hand.
I'm sorry, I
didn't
have
see you
a
there. I
question or a
apologize.
comment. I'm sorry. Marisa Brown for the record. Speaking of patient safety and quality, I think healthcare is an area maybe that we need to consider. I think there's a growing demand and need for patient safety and quality staff. And I don't know if the if consideration for a certification program is the same as it would be for consideration for a degree, but I know we have an incredible shortage in healthcare with regards to infection preventionists, and there are more and more regulatory responsibilities coming down on hospitals that look at data and inpatient safety and harm and those kinds of things. So I don't know if that process is the same to be introduced to the college, or if there's consideration for that.
We will look into it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I might take it if you do.
All right. Great. Good.
Thank you. Great comment. Just want to make sure I don't overlook anyone. Any other further questions, thoughts, or comments? So we move on to agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action to establish IAC priorities for next biennium to be discussed at upcoming NG cabinet visit. It is just about 11:30. Let's be mindful of our time with 30 minutes.
Yes, and I think Karin Hilgerson for the record, I'm going to try to do this in about 5 minutes and suggest to the IAC that if you have any suggestions or additions, that you send me an email, or Jim New, or both of us preferably. If you look at the very last page, you'll see a handout that says Administrative Report, Ideas Shared with the IAC, November 6, 2017. The NSHE process for planning ahead of the legislative session is to do visits to each NSHE institution, which are occurring right about now. And so next week, the Chancellor and his cabinet will be visiting TMCC, and we've been asked to present in a 2-hour time frame a budget presentation. And the crux of the presentation is what's working well for you now, what's not working so well budget-wise, and what do you want us to ask for during the next legislative session? So they'll be collecting all of those ideas from all the NSHE institutions. They will prioritize those ideas, so some of them won't make the final list, right? So we've got to be kind of cognizant of that. But this is an opportunity for us to say, here's what's working well with our budget, here's what's not working so well, and here's what we'd like to ask for. Here is what we need. So on this handout, you can see sort of the list of ideas that have already been either forwarded to management or created by management. And I just wanted to give the IAC an opportunity to understand the list and to also provide, if you've got an idea that's not on the list, that you have an opportunity to forward it to Jim New or I. They're coming on Wednesday, however. Now, that's not the final word. I mean, and by the way, we didn't have a lot of notice on this, just so you know. So, but I'm really glad. I think it's a really good process. It's a fair process. And I think the conversations will continue just over the next year, really. So if you don't get it to me soon, that's okay. I mean, I can still find a way to at least discuss it. I do feel that we've covered quite a lot. It's hard for me to imagine what we've missed, other than I just want an extra $2 million to, to do a lot of fun programs, right? Which that's too vague. They want much more detail than that. So that's all I have. And considering the time, I think that's probably all that. As much time as we can devote to that topic. So thank you.
Yeah, you were great on time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we get to one of the final items, new business, future agenda items. Is there any new business? Hearing none. Public comment. Is there any additional public comment? Hearing none. I want to wish you all a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Thank you for the great work. The meeting is adjourned.